When I was about 7 years old, I discovered this girl who lived across the street from me, Chrissy, her name was Chrissy, had a rear and a front bum. Okay, well, not literally. You know what I mean? We were playing doctor. Marcus Welby. Does everybody know who Marcus Welby is? Yeah, he had a show on television back in the 70s and 60s. And it was called Marcus Welby, MD. And so I pretended I was Marcus Welby, and Chrissy took down her panties and took off her shirt, and we played doctor, which of course is a very normal thing for little kids to do. This is what it means to be a little kid, besides, you know, blowing up schools like what you do. shit like that. Yes. Honestly, I see the merits in blowing up schools, but Chrissy's bum was far more interesting. It was a cute little bum. I remember it. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was, for a 6 or 7 year old, it was fulfilling. Now, here's the scenario. We all have our little Chrissy Thompson, don't we? Oops, I said her name. We all have our little Chrissy, don't we? Yeah. And some Chrissies are, you are the Chrissy. If I had a time machine. Religion or morality, what's so funny? What? Okay. Religion or morality would not allow such events to take place. It's just not in their scope of behavior. Dynamics. What happens through the eyes of morality? What happens through the eyes of religiosity? Dynamics. Number one, you perceive a situation. Now, there's not a person on this planet, as far as I'm aware of, who hasn't been in this particular state. You look at a situation and you perceive it. Number two, be afraid. Remember there was a movie about 10 or 20 years ago, and the slogan, the commercial was "Be afraid, be very afraid." Well, this is the way essentially most people live their lives. Not just afraid, but very afraid. And the fact of the matter is, the more intimacy that a human's exposed to, ultimately the greater the fear. Number three, because we are afraid, because we're in a situation, what do we do? What is human nature? What is our religiosity? What is our morality? What does it say? It says, essentially, deal with it inappropriately. This is how humanity responds. This is the way we're trained. We are not trained. There's nothing within our makeup. There's nothing within our paradigm, essentially, until we get later on in the sermon, that suggests to us that we should deal with a situation appropriately. How do we deal with a situation inappropriately? Well, we respond to our carnal nature, if I'm allowed to use that term. And it works very effectively. What do? We run away. Run away, remember Monty Python and the Holy Grail? Attack, attack! And the rabbit comes out and starts eating people. Run away, run away! Well, this is what we do with intimacy. Intimacy is like a rabbit. And it might be able to jump around a little bit, but that's it. It really can't. You might be hallucinating. You might be deluded enough to think this rabbit can jump and grab your throat. And your parents will tell you that the rabbit can jump and get you. Now, we're obviously not talking about the rabbit. We're talking about the rabbit of fornication. The rabbit of masturbation. The rabbit of getting drunk with your buddies on a Friday night. All these rabbits, according to your parents, okay, to stay in tune with the conversation, the rabbit of smoking a joint. All these rabbits, we are told, will grab us by the neck and they will destroy us, they will eat us, they will consume us. These rabbits have no such power. Your parents have lied to you, kids. See, this is why I don't teach religion in the schools anymore. Hey kids, your parents are a bunch of motherfucking liars. When I taught religion at Cornwallis, the principal loved me, and I loved him. In fact, he's about as close as I could have to a hero, you know. He was just a fantastic, but he thought I was great too, which was usually when I respect somebody, they don't like me, and it goes to a bad fucking place. And I learned that no, if you're going to respect anybody, make sure it's Paul McCartney. It always comes back to Paul. Anyway, so the teacher, or the principal rather, would have, when I was teaching religion, would have all the teachers, not all of them, but a lot of them gathered in the room, and they would listen to me on the PA. And then after the class, I'd walk down the hallway, and all these teachers would be looking at me and laughing their asses off. So it's funny how interesting people are and how quickly they change, you know. Eventually the principal retired and was replaced by another principal. I was intuitive enough to get the fuck out of Dodge. If I had not, and if I had stayed there, they'd be looking at me as I walked down the hallway all right, but it wouldn't be smiles, they'd be showing their teeth. Dynamics. We perceive a situation. Number 2, be afraid. We are taught to be afraid. The more intimacy, the more fear. Number 3, deal with it inappropriately. How do we deal with it inappropriately? Run away, run away. Did that one, didn't I? We judge each other, okay? We love to judge each other. It's not just, you know, judging each other is the gift that keeps on giving. It really is, because not only are we saying we are better than another human, but because we judge them and piss all over them, suddenly they're dirty and smelly and their opinion on the subject doesn't matter, right? This is why people like to get in groups. Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am in the midst of them. This is true. When 2 or 3 are gathered miscellaneously, Jesus aside, you know, people gather strength from each other, and very quickly horrible things become appropriate, you know. So Jesus was right when he said there's strength in numbers, but there's also negative strength in numbers. There's the possibility for horrendous things. Groups are dangerous. We've all been to church, most of us. That's a really good example, you know, how dangerous groups can be. And they feed off each other, right? And the thing is, like, nothing in this world stays the same. Everything's getting better or getting worse. So when you have a group of people and they've been established for a long time, my advice to you is, if it doesn't kind of like radiate and permeate love, acceptance, and forgiveness, keep the fuck away. Because if they've been there for a long time, they have some shit going on, and they have a lot of things in order. Their house is in order, right? And not in a good way. We judge each other. We judge those who perceive differently. Okay, here's another one. We secretly indulge, and I'll be talking about that in a few minutes. You know, the things that we say that others shouldn't do, the things we teach people to keep away from, we secretly indulge in ourselves. And this is very common to human nature. Lie about the whole fucking thing. Okay, that's another one. So basically, dynamics. We perceive a situation. Number 2, we are afraid of that situation, and the more intimacy involved, the more our fear is usually obvious. Number 3, we deal with it inappropriately. Number 4, you adjust yourself according to the crap. You know, according to how much judgment you've given to other people, how far you've run away. See, all these things, what we have to understand is every decision we make in our lives is taking us to a place. It's not just a decision. It's not like, okay, I figure I'll do that. It really propels us in a certain direction. And if you are judging other people, and if you are secretly indulging in the things, essentially being hypocritical, in the things that you're telling people not to do, these things, these decisions you make, although it's usually quite invisible, you're in a raft, and you are going to a place, and you are going to have a destination. So at number 4, we adjust yourself accordingly to the crap. You wallow in, you like that word wallow? I like that. Wallow in the mire. I'm going to write a sermon called Wallow in the Mire. My first girlfriend's name was Mire. I'm just... Can you cut that part out? I thought you were going to be thinking, oh, he wallowed in the mire. Whoosh. Actually, my first girlfriend's name was not Meyer, and I don't think under these circumstances I'll ever have the testicles to date a girl named Meyer. Not just because I don't like the name. It's a nice name. It's a beautiful name. It's one of those names that you find in your basement under the rug when you're cleaning up in the springtime. You know what I mean by that? No? You don't know what that means? She doesn't know what that means. No. Oh yeah, blow kisses now. We'll talk later. I don't know what it means either. Adjust. Number 4, adjust yourself accordingly to the crap you wallow in. And number 5, learn sweet fuck all. We learn nothing. Well, in fact, that's not completely true, because usually we do learn things. We learn the wrong things. Okay, so these are the dynamics. Now, as I said a few minutes ago, I was talked about secretly indulging, right? And I said this is a real bad thing. Here's the thing, when you secretly indulge in, see, this whole sermon is about learning experience and how our experiences in life, if you get away from fear and religion and judgment, all this crap, our experiences can make us incredibly amazing human beings, which is what God has put us on this planet for, right? But here's the trick, like God's up there, you know, the puppet master. Pull the strings, Jesus, pull the strings, right? Like that's kind of shit, right? And when we secretly indulge, in these things, we don't have the same capacity to learn. It's not there. You know, if we, for example, I talked about the little girl and my experience with her when I was 7 years old. That is a learning experience. That is fundamental in terms of developing my emotional, my sexual, whatever, okay? But the same thing done with fear, done with judgment, done with lying to people about what I was up to, it's not going to have that effect on your soul, your spirit, and your mind. It says in the Bible, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, right? So when we give our heart, soul, strength, and mind, and then we enter experiences, these experiences make us like incredible. They are, every day can be like a BA, you know? You can learn more in one day, if you really set your mind to life, like I would say everybody in this room has. You can learn more in one day than the average asshole can learn if he lives to be 1,000 years old. You know, and it's not really hard, because if you're just justifying things, if you're trying to maneuver the world for your own benefit, you're not going to learn a damn thing. You know, besides how to lie and manipulate. It's funny, I spent the last 20 years learning how to let go let go, let go, let go, let God, and all the rest of it. And I still find layers and layers of that shit that God, in daily situations, brings to the surface. So I wrote down, just for the record, secretly indulge is at least as bad as the other alternatives. That makes sense, right? You understand what I'm saying there? It denies the ingredients of discovery. What are the ingredients of discovery? Love, which is light. Peace, opposed to fear. Acceptance, as opposed to non-acceptance. Joy. Joy is an interesting thing. Joy is like this whole, you know, I could do a course on joy. Like this multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry we have. And I'm all for it. I love movies and shit like this, and I certainly love music, as you can tell. But to a large extent, it's people trying to simulate joy. You know, joy is what happens when you are engaged in an activity and God is blessing it. You have this joy, and it's an incredible thing. And it's not like being happy, and it's not like having an orgasm, and it's not like being tickled. It's its own, or in Chrissy's case, tickled to orgasm.
Oh, yeah.
She has her own style. Yeah, the directions, she has her own line of vibrators, and the directions are written on the... Alrighty then. You can tell me what you're laughing at, and you can tell me what you're not laughing at. Maybe we should go back to talking about the high-powered joints. Maybe next week before I preach, we should have a couple of high-powered joints. This is opposed to discovery. The name of this sermon is Discovery. The reason why I call it Discovery, well, it's obvious, isn't it? It's about discovering. It's about discovering yourself. By the way, my favorite Electric Light Orchestra album was released in 1979. Went to, I believe, number 4 or 5 on Billboard, and it is called Discovery. This is opposed to discovery. Five dynamics. Number 1, perceive a situation. Back to square one. Number 2, be fearless in this situation. And my brother, Stephen, who's dead now, which unfortunately doesn't make the world a worse place. I remember once Stephen told me this story about he was in this bar, and it was, I think it was the Hells Angels, but one of those motorbike gangs was there. And they got in an argument, like all 4 or 5 of these Hells Angels and my brother got in an argument about what the best guitar was. And my brother challenged the whole fucking lot of them to go outside and have a fight. You know? And they were so perplexed by this man's behavior that they weren't even, you know, they just basically left, I think. But my point is, this is not fearlessness. This is being stupid. Okay, if you're in a, I don't care if my brother had a secret knowledge of all the great guitars. I don't care if he owned Jimi Hendrix's guitar. I don't really give a shit. You don't challenge 3 or 4 or 5 members of Hell's Angels to a fight over a fucking guitar. Right? So, but this is the world simulates fearlessness. Fearlessness is first of all, it's ironic because the more fear you feel, the more fearlessness you can exhibit to the world. And what I mean by that is, if I'm just kind of like crazy or retarded or some reasonable facsimile, and I don't feel fear, then no matter what it is, any interaction I have with you cannot be fearless, right? How could it be fearless? You know, if I have no fear, then it's just acting like a rock. Does that make sense? Okay? But when you feel fear, and when you have these emotional obstacles to overcome, and you have these hurts, and you have these pains, and you still do the right thing. You still do what you're supposed to do, what God compels you to do. Now that's real fearlessness. This is opposed to discovery. Number 1, perceive a situation. Number 2, be fearless. Number 3, deal appropriately. Reasonable experimentation. Reasonable experimentation. In other words, like, going crazy in terms of experimenting with sex or anything else. We all know there's a line. Nobody can tell us that line. And maybe the line is different for everyone, but we all know that there's lines in terms of behavior, and there's appropriate behavior and there's inappropriate behavior. We know that. The problem comes in when people start telling us what those lines are. You can't really tell. Besides the fact, you probably don't have the capacity or the knowledge to tell people that kind of shit. The bottom line is they got to figure it out for themselves. And if they don't figure it out for themselves, it's not theirs. It's not theirs. Well, our emotional development has to be ours, which means it has to be a first-hand learning experience. No matter how smart I am, if I just sit you down and tell you what to believe, and I'm the smartest guy in the world and everything I say is true, it's still not your shit. Now if I tell you my experience, like I am right now, and my experience of life, and my experience with people, and my experience with Chrissy, and all the rest of it, and you take mental notes and you use this as a point of reference, now that's really cool. But for me to sit down and tell you people what you should experience, how you should experience it, and give you guidelines, that's inappropriate. And it makes it very, very difficult to learn. I wrote a sermon, I haven't preached it, I don't think yet, but a couple months ago I wrote it. It's called First-Hand Learning. And the best learning, the greatest form of learning is first-hand learning, which doesn't give people the license to be an idiot, right? And if they say to you, like people have said to me, I'm just doing my thing, I'm not being an idiot, and you got to trust me, it's right, I do got to trust you. That's it. It's your life. We have this relationship and you're lying to me. I'm not going to call you on it. It's your life, and I love you, and that has to be the way everything develops. Okay. This is opposed to discovery. Number 1, perceive a situation. Number 2, be fearless. Number 3, deal appropriately. Reasonable experimentation, which I obviously just said. Humility, community, love, which is light, and joy. All these things are helping us to deal with things appropriately. Number 4, you get bigger as you grow. One of my favorite Bruce Cockburn songs. You do indeed. If you take this road that is away from religion, that is away from morality, and you basically embrace the road God has given you, you will get bigger as you grow. And you will learn to love, and you will learn to be, and you'll learn how to be present in a situation as opposed to self-indulgent in a situation. And number 5, we learn and we change. I close with this. The Bible says, love leads you into all truth. Love leads you, not another person, not another person's great ideas, not a book, but love leads you into all truth. Amen.